do you think people will make it sound more complex than it is?
I think it is quite easy, but because it's different than just maybe using sugar or any ingredients, people are scared of it, but there's nothing to be afraid of.
I'm here with Dr. Margarethe Plotkowiak from Gelita in Germany. Now, Gelita specialise in gelatin, so we're here to answer all of your questions. Maggie, you're a doctor. What are you a doctor in?
I've got my doctorate in food chemistry.
That's fantastic. So we're definitely speaking to the right person. Now we're here to demystify everything about gelatin because it can be a little bit confusing.
But it's not that hard.
It's not that hard. So Maggie, how many types of gelatin are there?
There's quite a few.
So we've got 1 platinum, 2 gold, 3 silver,
Bronze,
4 bronze, and
titanium.
5 different types of gelatin sheets. And then we go into powders. How many different types of powders does Gelita have?
For the end consumer, it would be 2.
2 different types of powders. So I know already you're saying, no, which one do I use? So we're here to tell you and explain it. And it is so simple, isn't it?
It's quite simple once you know it.
So if I've got a recipe that requires gold gelatin sheets, but I've only got bronze, what do I do?
You just carry on as if nothing happened. It's the same. You use 1 sheet as 1 sheet.
So we're not going to go by grams, we're going to go by the number of sheets. So if the recipe calls for 2 grams of gold gelatin, that means it's 1 sheet. You can substitute that 1 gold sheet with any of the gelatin sheets that we've got here. So commercially or in food service, you would use these large sheets as we have here. Now if you're cooking from home, you might be familiar with these smaller sheets, which are exactly the same in strength as the larger ones. It's simply the large sheet folded over. So Maggie, you would have had a lot of questions over the years. Do you think people will make it sound more complex than it is? Because when you break it down, it's really easy.
I think it is quite easy, but because it's different than just maybe using sugar or any ingredients, people are scared of it. And once they had a bad experience, they're afraid of it, but there's nothing to be afraid of.
So once we've got the gelatin sheets, which is my preference to use because they're so simple, you can use a powder, but the sheets are really easy. How do we prepare the sheet before we add it into our recipe?
It depends on what you're doing, but the key thing would be that you soak it in water so it hydrates, and you can use it in your recipe simply by adding it then to it or dissolving it in the liquid that you need.
So we're soaking it in water. What temperature should the water be?
The water should be ideally chilled or with ice even, because if you use too warm water, then you start to dissolve the gelatin and you're losing some of its properties.
And how long do we need to keep it in the bowl of water?
Maybe 5 to 7 minutes. It actually says it's on the box, but if you forget it and let it sit for about 20 minutes, nothing bad will happen, but just don't do it too often.
Now, when you're soaking the gelatin, just place 1 sheet at a time in. Don't place them all in a clump because it takes quite a while for the water to penetrate through to the center. So Maggie, what are common questions you get asked about gelatin?
Sometimes we have people who say that it didn't set, but sometimes it's usually an error in application. Maybe they've been using fruit that, like papaya or pineapple, that will inhibit or stop the gelatin from working properly. Okay,
that's an interesting fact. So kiwi fruit, pineapple and papaya have an enzyme in them that actually stops the gelatin's ability to set. So how do we avoid that if we want to work with those fruits?
The ideal way would be either to poach them if you can, or if you boil it or heat treat it in any way, or if you're using fruit from a can, because then it's been already heat treated and then you shouldn't have any issues at all.
So heating it's going to kill that enzyme and eliminate that problem for us.
True.
And you did mention earlier, Maggie has made some vodka shots with gelatin.
As a student.
Now, alcohol can actually also limit the gelatin's ability to set, so you might have to play around with it a little bit.
I think from my experience, and like I said, that was when I was a student, I think the idea would be to use simply twice the amount, because then you get the firmness that you want, but you simply have to try it out. Usually the normal dosage wouldn't be enough.
Now, Maggie, can we overheat gelatin?
Yeah, you can. So I would avoid boiling it where possible, but if you accidentally brought it to the boil, it won't do it any harm. But as before with the soaking, just don't try to do it. It'll make it easier if you avoid boiling.
Now, Maggie, I always like to ask this. We're talking about food because I do love my food. Is there any health benefits to gelatin? Because it is protein, collagen. Am I going to look younger the more gelatin that I eat?
It depends on what you want to achieve. I tend to often answer the question, if you ate too many sweets, like gummy bears, we have a lot of gelatin. Yeah, you will lose some wrinkles, but that's maybe not for the reason you want to.
Is that because my skin's going to stretch with all the weight I've put on?
Probably. But ideally, gelatin is protein, and protein is actually quite good for you, and it keeps you full for longer. So it's a good ingredient to use.
So Maggie, some people can only get powder. If they've got powder, how much should they use for one sheet?
I would say it's about maybe a teaspoonful, or 2 grams if you want to weigh it. But usually you have to see and work it out if it reaches the firmness that you want or not. Maybe try it out beforehand. So not maybe on the last minute when you need that cake.
Okay, so approximately a teaspoon or 2 grams of powder for one sheet. So here we have platinum, we've got gold, we've got silver. Particularly fond of the platinum myself. Now, Maggie, is there any advantage of using the platinum over, say, the bronze? Are they going to set exactly the same?
They will set exactly the same. There's no difference when it comes to the properties or the quality. What you will get with platinum is more sheets in the box.
So when it comes down to gelatin, and you've explained it so well, Maggie, thank you, it's really, really simple to use. So you're going to take your sheets, you're going to soak it in a bowl of chilled or ice water for 6 to 7 minutes until it's pliable, and then you're going to apply it to your recipe. Once it's pre-soaked or hydrated, you're not going to boil it because that can brown the protein a little bit and discolor it a little bit, so we don't want that to happen. But you can heat it up to about 80 degrees Celsius before applying it to your product. Now, one thing that's important to remember when you're applying gelatin, if you've got a big bowl of cold cream and you pour the gelatin in there, it's going to set when it touches the surface. So it's always better to take a little bit of the colder mixture out, mix it with the gelatin first, and then add that back in and then gently fold it through to get an even distribution of the gelatin to ensure that it doesn't set as soon as it touches a cold surface. Because gelatin sets about 28-30 degrees Celsius. So when you've got something directly from the fridge and you pour the gelatin straight on there, it will set immediately. So always take a little bit out, mix it together before folding it back through, and then you'll end up with the perfect product using Gelita gelatin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Maggie.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed that episode, you will love my channel. Subscribe today for even more tutorials on chocolate and baking. Best of all, it's free, so get on it.